Manchester United's brand new manager has barely adjusted to life in a new country, and his report card is already being compared to Ten Hag's performances before he left. If you think rationally, that's a crazy comparison to make and completely unnecessary. But such is the state of the once great club. The summer of 2025 will make it 12 years since the last good thing about the club left them to fend for themselves. Sir Alex Ferguson was running on fumes by the time he left the club in 2013. The cracks had started appearing in the last few years of his tenure, but it was too convenient to ignore back then because they were still vying for major titles. But 12 years is a long time. Clubs have fallen into obscurity and returned to the top in far less turnaround time. So why haven't United been able to adapt to modern football and turn their fortunes around yet? That's the question we're hoping to dive deeper into today and follow up with a much more important one. Can we expect this to be the club's trajectory over the next decade as well? We covered United's trajectory under their last Portuguese manager not so long ago. If you want to understand why Mourinho was the best thing that happened to United post-Fergie, watch this video. Let's talk about the hidden problems at Manchester United that aren't talked about enough, but which are restricting the club from growing. Before Sir Alex left in 2013, literal and metaphorical cracks had already started appearing at Old Trafford. The literal ones came in the form of ill-maintained infrastructure at the club that wasn't kept up to the standards with changing times. Jose Mourinho was the first one to call the club out for such lingering problems. Then it was Ronaldo who was brutally honest about the club's state. When clubs like Tottenham can build a state-of-the-art stadium while remaining as competitive as United during that time, why can't United do it? There's no lack of commercial revenue and they need to upgrade their decades-old facilities. So the simple question is, why aren't they? Well, it's because the Glazers aren't really inclined to see United prosper in terms of football. They only want to extract as much money as they possibly can from the club. This isn't even speculation. You just need to look at their ownership pattern and how they've dealt with these problems in the past. First of all, they have a stake in the club in a debt-driven ownership model. In simpler terms, this basically means that when they took over in 2005, it was a leveraged buyout. Since then, the club has been making huge interest payments to the Glazers from the revenue they've earned instead of reinvesting it into the club. Secondly, the owners clearly prioritize short-term revenue models over long-term growth. The most exciting part for the Glazers comes during the off-season when sponsorship deals are being negotiated. That's their bread and butter from the club. Thirdly, rebuilding their stadium would include the usual amount of financial risk in terms of funding. Spurs took out a huge loan to make their new stadium, but United's existing mountain of debt makes it a riskier proposition for the owners to consider. Club ownership and defining success have completely changed since the early 2010s. A few clubs like Manchester City and Liverpool have adapted well to this switch-up, but United have probably been the worst of the Premier League's Big Six to adapt to modern football. Once upon a time, they were kings of English football. Under Sir Alex, they ruled the Premier League, winning trophies almost every season. Fans expected dominance, and United delivered. But times have changed. Football has evolved, and Manchester United have simply struggled to keep up. When Sir Alex retired in 2013, United lost more than just a manager. They lost their identity. Ferguson wasn't just a tactician, he was the glue holding the club together. He oversaw everything from transfers to training to the team's spirit. After he left, the club looked lost. They appointed David Moyes, but he didn't even last a year. Since then, United have had 5 permanent managers before Amorim, each with a different vision of sort. There has been no consistency or a clear direction. Compare this with Manchester City. When Pep Guardiola joined in 2016, City built their entire system around his philosophy. They signed players who fit his style and backed him through ups and downs. United, on the other hand, have jumped from one plan to another, leaving the players confused and the fans frustrated. 80 million for Maguire and 100 million for Antony made no financial sense whatsoever. They throw money at big names without thinking, simply hoping for the best. Look at Di Maria in 2014. He came in with a massive price tag but left after just one season after failing to live up to expectations. Alexis Sanchez, one of the Premier League's best wingers, joined in 2018 but flopped spectacularly. These signings didn't fit into a clear system or philosophy. They were just expensive attempts to fix short-term problems. City spent less on Ruben Dias than United did on Maguire, and Dias transformed their defense. Same story with Liverpool and Van Dijk. The clear difference in strategy explains why United are lagging. They are incapable of planning for the long term. The constant scrutiny and criticism about specific problems pushes them to fix those leaks while completely missing the bigger picture. New problems will keep coming up unless a holistic approach is taken and some heartfelt sacrifices are made. There is one sacrifice the fans would absolutely love to make, and that's the Glazers. A major reason for United's constant failure is their ownership. The Glazer family bought the club in 2005 but didn't invest in its future. They focused on squeezing profits rather than building a modern football empire. Old Trafford was once the jewel of English stadiums. It now perfectly encapsulates United's situation, aging and outdated. Leaking roofs and poor facilities show just how far behind it has fallen. Compare this to Tottenham's sparkling new stadium or City's state-of-the-art training facilities. The Glazers have also prioritized commercial deals over football success. They've signed players like Ronaldo, only to boost shirt sales. Of course, Ronaldo offered much more than he should have been able to, but that's up to his elite standards and mentality. The intention behind his homecoming was profit-driven and not made keeping the club's future in mind. Moreover, football has changed now. Teams use data, analytics, and advanced scouting techniques to get ahead. Despite being one of the richest clubs in the world, Manchester United have failed to embrace these modern standards. Take Brentford, for example. They built their success on a data-driven approach, signing players who fit their style and selling them for a profit. United, by contrast, often buy players for their star power rather than their potential impact on the team. This outdated approach has left them trailing behind clubs with smaller budgets but smarter strategies. Another problem is the team itself. United's dressing room has lacked strong leaders for years. During Ferguson's time, players like Roy Keane and Ryan Giggs kept the squad disciplined and motivated. These days, cliques and egos seem to dominate the dressing room. Reports of players clashing with managers, refusing to follow instructions, or even leaking information to the media paint a picture of this chaos. The standards are so far down now for the Red Devils that they've arguably become a bigger banter club than Arsenal was during their lockdown era. The best teams in the world have unity. At United, there's just confusion and a lack of vision. Managers like Ten Hag and Mourinho have tried to impose discipline, but years of poor culture have made it next to impossible. But perhaps the biggest problem is that the club and its fans are stuck in their glory days. They still see themselves as the dominant force they once were under Ferguson. But football doesn't wait for anyone. Teams like City, Arsenal, and even Newcastle United lately have evolved while investing in the future. United are still clinging to the past. Until this narrative comes to an end that they are by any means still as big of a club as they were under Fergie, they will continue to fail. To get back to the top, they need more than just money. They need a clear vision, better leadership, and the humility to accept that they've fallen behind. After all, the first step is acceptance. Without that, Manchester United will remain a sleeping giant in a game that has moved on without them.